We're live again.
Here we are after a 1 week hiatus, no less.
Yep.
Hiatus,
Oh yeah, that's I've
hiatus,
always said hiatus. Is it
hiatus.
hiatus? Sounds like Kenny Bunkport. Hiatus. Hiatus port.
Hiatus. Hey, what are we
Yeah.
doing? I'm taking a hiatus.
Oh my gosh. Man. So dude, how's your couple weeks been? Talk to me, Goose.
I mean, it's been busy but good. Stove went out. Um, the burners are uh, not not being controlled correctly from the little device thing, so
Oh,
wound up burning some things and undercooking some other things. We're like, that's it. I mean, it's been on the fritz for a while. We're buying a new one, and ever since then, it has acted totally perfect.
it heard you,
It
man.
knew it was
It
being
was like,
replaced.
not on my watch.
It's like, I'm too young to die.
Don't
So,
delete me.
yeah, that's been going on. And then work, lots of lecturing, tests, grading, panicked
Hmm.
students, happy students, sort of a combination of everything. The normal. What about you?
And you went to the beer fest or whatever that was
Mm-hmm. Oktoberfest, Galveston.
in Galveston.
Yep.
Yeah,
So one of the beauties of living in Houston is you've got island life an hour away.
island life.
It really is like a different world when you cross that bridge. It's like you're. It's not a suburb of Houston. It's not like going to the Woodlands and like
Right, right.
it's
Yeah,
different.
I was talking to mom the other day, and I was just asking her, hey, now that Dad's retiring from the church, or like lining that up, do you guys think you'll stay there? Do you think you'll move somewhere? And she was like, well, I don't know. You know how mom is like, I don't know. Like, I guess, well, yeah, we hadn't even thought about that. And I was like, well, if you could go anywhere, like, where would you go? And it was interesting, man. You know what was at the top of her list?
Probably Galveston.
Galveston.
Yeah,
Yeah. She was like, that just seems so fun to live like on the island and we'd still be close to everybody. I'm like, you should totally do it. Like,
go do it. Well, what's funny is I remember when we were kids, we go to Galveston regularly. I mean, it wasn't like all the time because we were living in Tyler, so it's what 5 hours away.
right,
But I remember we would go, and as kids, we were kind of like, it's kind of dirty, it's kind of
right.
smelly, right?
Galveston is, man. It doesn't have a like, I mean, it's got the Gulf, so it's got that going for it.
Yeah, but the Gulf is, usually this murky water, and we're
Right.
eating super greasy seafood, and we're just kind of like, why do we keep going here? Why aren't we going to like South Padre or something? But they were always like super happy in Galveston. They're like holding hands, walking at the beach. We're like, what is this? And then found out that's where they spent their honeymoon.
Right.
So so Galveston has all these romantic memories where they're like,
Right.
oh, here we are back at the place. Remember that hotel? We walked past there, all sort of stuff, and they're just like reminiscing. And as kids, we're just like, you know, that
I,
jellyfish looked at me funny.
I think I remember like one of the stories that they told me was I think they got married in '68. Our parents, they got married in '68. My dad had like $50 to his name to take mom on a honeymoon. And I guess when they went down there, they wanted to stay for 3 or 4 days or whatever it was, a long weekend. And this hotel, I guess, was like, well, it's going to be, I don't know what the number was. It was like $25 a night or something, $30 a night. And my dad's like, well, look, man, I got $50. I'm on my honeymoon. Is there anything you can do? And I think they let him stay there for the whole long weekend for like $30 or something. And say, okay, we're gonna hook you up. So he had like $20 left for the whole weekend,
To show
and
his bride a good time.
to show us, yeah. And he said it was great though, because I mean, going to the beach is free. You go to the grocery store, get you some tortillas, some whatever, and you figure it out.
There's something very pure about being poor and in love.
A
You know.
100%, man.
Yeah.
I was watching this movie last night. I sent you a text. It's an old movie called Meet John Doe. It's got
Hmm.
Barbara Stanwyck and Gary Cooper in it. For those of you guys that, if you're watching this, you haven't seen it before, it's basically a story of this newspaper that's struggling. It gets bought by a billionaire, and so he's got a mandate to basically cut costs and ramp up circulation. So he sends this like hard nosed newspaper guy in there to clean house. And basically, like Elon takes over Twitter, fires 80% of the staff, right? It's a similar story. And this one girl reporter who gets the axe, she's like, she's begging for a job. And the guy says, well, you don't understand, man. Your column's not a fit. We need fireworks here. Your column isn't going to
We
cut it.
should we should add in that this was made in and takes place during the Great Depression.
Right.
So
In the
getting
30s.
laid off isn't just like, well, I'll find another job. I mean, that could be there's no social safety net like there is now.
Right.
That could be a death sentence.
Correct. Yeah. And so she ends up making up this story, letter to the editor. And she makes up this letter that basically says, every man, John Doe, basically writes into the newspaper. It's all fabricated, saying that, the political system's, garbage. Everything in the country's garbage. Everything's going to hell. And, the man is taking advantage of everybody. And so to protest, I'm jumping off of, the roof of City Hall on Christmas Eve to kill myself in protest, basically. And of course, like, it just ramps up circulation. They end up hiring some hobo to kind of fill in. That's the Gary Cooper character. And
Got to keep
she's
the scam going.
she's writing speeches for him, and he's holed up in some nice hotel room or whatever. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating commentary, and like, it's so applicable today in terms of like the fake news that's out there, the manufactured outrage, all of the things that if you have two brain cells knocking together and watch the news today, like, that what you're watching is probably not true. It's probably designed to like take advantage of you in some way, manipulate you. It's such a great commentary, and how he tries to stand up to the machine and just gets run over. It's not the most positive movie,
No.
but it's terrific. And his traveling buddy, Frank Capra.
Yeah, it's Capra, but like at his least optimistic. Like,
right.
Even at the end, it's not clear that anything really happened.
It's going to change, right? The fat cats are still in charge. Frank Capra, for those of you guys that don't follow cinema, like, Russ and I grew up watching old movies, when we were kids. So like, we're a little bit more versed in the catalog that's out there. But Frank Capra did It's a Wonderful Life, which I'm sure most of you have seen for Christmas.
Christmas,
George
Mr.
Bailey,
Potter.
right. So these heart-rending movies. But anyway, one of the characters in the movie that really spoke to me last night, it's his traveling companion. So John Doe, this hobo, he's got a traveling companion, and he's
Walter
like
Brennan plays him.
And he's got like this dime store philosophy about everything. And he talks about, he's like, no, you got to look out or the helots will get you. And he's like, the helots. He's like, yeah, basically there's a lot of heels out there in the world that try to take advantage of you. He's like, think about it, man. When you're broke, you don't have two nickels to rub together, right? I mean, you're just dead broke, but you don't have any problems. You walk by people on the street, and you get all kinds of people, right? Selling clothes, selling tires, selling whatever. Everybody's trying to pitch something, hawk somebody, but nobody bothers you, right? You're totally fine. You want people mind their own business. They leave you alone. But you get a couple of nickels rubbing together, you got some money. All of a sudden, all the helots come out to try to like suck you in. He goes, first they'll talk you into getting a bank account. And man, when you got a bank account, you're in trouble, because next thing you're gonna need a home, and you're gonna have to pay for that home. Then you have electricity, and you got gas, and then you got taxes, and you got insurance, and blah, blah.
At one point he says, before you know it, you're not going to be able to sleep without a pillow.
Right.
Like you've gone soft.
Right. He goes, and buddy, then they got you,
Yeah.
And it's so funny, man. But it's also kind of, well, I mean, yeah, that's true. They got you.
Yeah, I watched it. I was like, I can't disagree with anything you just said.
Right. Right.
Whoops.
Well, and that brings us full circle, man, to where we are. We got 1 week left, 6 days till
Yes.
the country descends into chaos and madness. So are you ready for this? Have you stocked up? You get your bunker built, and where you at?
I know we laugh, but I did see a poll, and I love polls. Not because I think they're like the truth, but it's interesting to see, how
you like girls on the polls. That's
yeah. That's very funny. No, but I think that 73% of the people polled, so it's like, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 likely voters across the country, 73% thought that it was either, it was at least somewhat likely that there would be widespread civil unrest after the election. Either
I would count myself firmly in that camp.
see now I'm not. I like 27. I'm in the 27%. You know, like because I think there's, and maybe it's just the difference in the parsing of it. But when I think widespread, so like I'm down here on my cul-de-sac, and I know my neighbors. I don't see anybody boarding up the windows.
Right.
You know, like am I like trying to figure out which ones of them are on my side? Like, I mean that's the widespread.
I don't know.
View.
You live it. It reminds me of that line from Swingers when he's like, I'm from LA, Anaheim, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you're in Anaheim.
well, no. I
When
mean,
I
my
hear when I
district. This my district is trying to think of his first name, but it's Lee, the guy, the first person to file impeachment charges against Trump
oh
before he even took office.
yeah,
Yep,
get a head start on it. Yeah,
impeaching him for dividing the country. You know,
yeah.
so that my district is very deep blue. He's running currently unopposed for Congress. For
Well, do you have a Trump sign in your yard?
Why would I do that?
Well, see, then you're probably in good shape. Just don't let anybody know. It's a
Well,
private ballot for a reason.
yeah, but what I'm saying though is like I don't see. I mean, I have seen people with Trump signs out, and I walk past people in the grocery store with the MAGA hat or whatever, and nobody's like yelling at them. It's fine,
Right. Well,
And
when I think widespread, of course, it's all in the interpretation, I guess.
right,
But when I hear that question, widespread social unrest, I'm like, I just think like multiple areas across the country will experience. I don't think it's going to hit every street. I mean, I doubt it'll hit my subdivision, but I mean, do I think that there will be protests, potentially some that might escalate into rioting in multiple states? Yeah, I do.
like Seattle descends into chaos for a few blocks. They take it over again, and
You have people. I mean, and unfortunately, and I wish like I've been pretty heavy on the pretty heavy on my criticisms of the left the last several months. But I have to say, I really think it's probably on both sides in this case. You've got people on the left, like I've been watching Morning Joe for years. I watch Morning Joe, and I mean Scarborough, and I mean that guy was a Republican congressman. He was part of the Gingrich's revolution, contract with America, the whole thing. His wife is the daughter, Mika Brzezinski, is the daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was Jimmy Carter's chief of staff. Pardon me, national security director. Very, very hawkish dude. So like both of them kind of
sort of neocon-ish.
would be neoconish, lean right or whatever. But they have gone like so far, dude. They are so, and they're not the only ones. I mean, like The View. You look at a lot of these shows, and I mean, all the rhetoric from the left right now is, this is life or death. This is, if you're a woman, this is literally life or death. Election, you have to go vote. You can't, sit on the sidelines. They are coming for you. Nicole Wallace was on. I mean, she was Sarah Palin's. She was with the McCain campaign. Nicole Wallace, right? I mean, she's now on MSNBC, of course, but like, she was talking about how she was joking with somebody else about how more than if Trump, not joking, but just kind of like talking about like, if Trump wins, I mean, we could, next broadcast we do, I mean, we could be doing it from a jail cell, I mean, like, because he's going to jail everybody. So you have that language, but then on the right, I mean, I was just talking to a good buddy of mine today, and he's just like, dude, I mean, it's so obvious to people on the right, especially, it is super obvious to them that Trump is going to run away with this thing. It's going to be a landslide. He's going to win the popular vote. They're going to win the Senate, the state house, because she's so bad. And it's obvious to everyone how bad she is, that it's just, it's going to be a runaway train for him. And it may be, but they're so convinced of it that I think if it doesn't, turn out that way, that you're going to have people, I mean, a lot of these podcasters and different people, spokespeople on the right, like if he loses at all, I mean, some of these people that have been just like out, he's obvious, it's obvious, it's obvious. They're going to be calling for, and I would be surprised if he didn't, because he did last time. He'll be calling for a protest, and I mean, they're stealing this from us. We got to stop the steal. You had pointed out maybe in one of our previous conversations that if Kamala loses, that they'll borrow the Stop the Steal playbook, and So, I mean, maybe you could speak to that too. I mean, that's an interesting prediction. I don't see why they wouldn't, frankly. At the end of the day, that who's that guy that Jamie Raskin, I think, is in the Senate,
Mm.
was talking about how, hey, these voters. I mean, he was. I don't even. I should find the clip. Of course, the video get pulled from YouTube for copyright, but but the clip of him saying basically, hey, these voters. I mean, they're all stupid. I mean, they're voting for the Republican Party's dumb because they nominated Trump. Trump's disqualified because he led an insurrection. And so, I mean, yeah, the party can run him, they can nominate him, people can vote for him, but he can't take the oath of office again.
Yeah,
And
we'll
so,
prevent him from taking the
yeah,
oath.
will prevent him from taking the oath of office
Yeah,
again. And so, I
basically
mean,
just said we'll do a coup. Great.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know how they would pull that off, but I mean, like, he's got some mechanism in mind, obviously. So, I mean, it's gonna be mayhem, bro.
well,
Everything that you think, like, wow, I don't know, I never thought I'd see this.
yeah,
You haven't even seen nothing yet. So,
yeah. So I'm kind of so I'm definitely not one of those people that says, "Oh, it couldn't happen here," kind of thing. I think that's ridiculous. Like, not only could it happen here, but it has. We had an actual civil war not that long ago, so
right.
of course it can happen here. So I'm not trying to do like blind optimism. What I think a lot of this rhetorical stuff is, I don't think that the people who are saying it mean it to be true. I I think what they're doing, and this is just my
You'd
take.
say that across the board, like everybody. So, like,
Yeah,
Trump doesn't mean his extreme stuff. Mika doesn't mean her extreme
no,
stuff. No,
no,
nobody means any
I
of
doubt
it.
they do. I mean, I guess. I mean, like the we were sharing that funny video that Glenn Greenwald made, but it's like, when the New York Times or no, the Washington Post was describing the Trump rally at Madison Square Gardens as fascist or Nazi, they were very careful never to say any of the things that actually make for fascism. You know, like it is that, oh, they complained about the government spending, they complain about this, they complain the news media is against them, and are like, well, none of those things are
Our
fascist
fascists. Yeah.
things, right? Like, yes, fascists say those, but fascists also like wear pants. And so it's just like, oh my gosh, they are also wearing pants. It's like, well, what about like the actual fascist stuff? And they were very careful to avoid talking about all that because it wasn't there. Like you don't have that. Or so, and the thing with like characterizing the roast comedian as a speaker, just as a speaker, like never mentioning this is a comedian. This is someone who insults people for a living. I mean, Jon Stewart pointed out that, like,
Mhm.
dude, what do you expect a roast comedian to do, like, other than like tell insulting jokes? That's the whole point, of a
Right.
roast comedian. I thought he was funny. Like, what's the problem?
Not a good choice for the campaign to hire that guy, but I mean,
Maybe not. Maybe it's
but
strategically a
that
terrible
is,
idea.
and
But
the other thing is too is nobody really knew. I don't think. I mean, some people know who Tony Hinchcliffe is. If you watch podcasts, I mean, he's pretty funny. He did. If you watch Netflix's Tom Brady roast, I mean, he was the
yeah,
host of that.
there was a lot of viral clips from that. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't watch the roast, but I saw some of those clips because
but you
of
don't have
how
that instant name
outrageous they were.
recognition. It's not like uh, you know,
Like if
Chris Rock,
Jim Carrey would come out or something.
Jim Carrey. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, okay. Chris Rock is going to give this next speech. Well, okay. Well, you know what you're in for.
yeah,
He didn't, I mean, he could have been anybody,
right.
they didn't announce him as, oh,
But
comedian Tony Hinchcliffe. They're just like, Tony Hinchcliffe's going to start this.
sure,
So
and
yeah,
and so like I said, as a campaign technique, maybe it was a bad idea, but
problematic.
but the people who were reporting on it knew very well who he was,
Right.
and if they purposefully decided not to look, so that they, that
Right.
just so it's like they don't believe what they're saying. They couldn't possibly.
It's like all
So
the people during Trump's first term, the Republicans, when they'd ask him, hey, what do you think about this tweet? Oh, I haven't read the tweet yet. Okay, but I'm telling you what it says. How do you respond? I have to look at it. I
yeah,
don't.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
I
it's
have
like
no
I'm
idea.
just gonna read it to you verbatim right now. Like no,
There's a website called Twitter. Never heard of it.
never heard of it. Yeah, so I don't think the people that are saying this stuff actually believe it. They can't. I don't think that's a reasonable position to take. So like, why are they saying it? So I think some of it is just to kind of get the hype machine going, but also um, I think there's like a permission structure that goes on. So um, it's like it's one thing to oppose a candidate, to say, hey, I don't like this guy. Here's my reasons. I'm gonna. But If I give you permission to completely and utterly shun not only that person, but every supporter they have, and to pressure them to the maximum degree. So that's like, go like this is when they showed the picture, the video of the lady who like it takes the Trump sign out of the someone's front yard, is like smashing it with a rock and
Stomping
stuff.
on it. Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's like, hey, let's give you permission to do that,
Mm.
you know. And then on the right, I think you have the same kind of thing. It's like, when you see stuff about I mean, the really crazy right wing stuff where they're like, oh yeah, the reason they need to keep abortion legal is so that there's enough infant blood to feed to the party elites and stuff.
Right, because
Like
they're drinking the blood.
they're
Yeah,
drinking the
exactly.
blood,
Yeah.
and it's just like, yeah, that's to give you permission to not just like debate a Democrat, but to utterly reject them.
Debbie
And
says you need to bring your volume up.
my volume.
Thank
So
you,
I
Debbie.
have it set to automatically adjust.
Well, it's clearly not working for you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
If Debbie says it ain't good, it ain't good. Debbie's
It
got
ain't
good
good.
taste.
Let me see here. That's privacy settings.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the conversations I had recently, we were talking about this, and it's like, they're creating. I think unfortunately, I mean, I can't.
How's this? Is this better, Debbie? Is this better?
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Is that too much?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Why don't you turn yours down?
Oh my god.
Turn your audio down.
This is being recorded, dude.
Sorry. Please continue.
You got to take it down, dude. That's way too loud.
How's that? Is that better?
Oh my gosh, that's still crazy.
Is that better?
What do you think, Debbie? Let Russell talk for a minute. You can comment.
Okay. Yes. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Yeah.
Yeah. Not women, just men. Yeah.
Well, man embraces woman. Wah wah. Okay. We'll just have to let that one go. That's. If I'm not blowing out air, that's very loud.
Yeah. Take it. You got to take it down. Thank you.
I just try the. Okay.
Somewhere like maybe just 1/3 of where you had it before. There you go.
How's that?
Now,
That's okay.
Okay. And she says,
That's a little better. Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Honestly, thank you, Debbie.
I apologize.
That'll help the recording out. So last week last time we did it was the other way around. Mine was like super loud on the recording, and yours was really quiet.
My mistake.
So,
Anyway,
I
please,
didn't. Yeah.
please continue your point.
I just think both sides are creating a permission structure for bad behavior afterwards. Like, and even in front of it. I mean, we still got 6 days. There's still plenty of time for. I mean, who knows what kind of shenanigans? But like, if you're trying to stop, there's this old exercise that we used to do, hypothetical, right? It's like if you could travel back in time and kill young Adolf Hitler, like he's 10 years old, he's going to school or whatever, you abduct him and whatever, you just bury him somewhere in the field, like, would you do it, right? And the answer, I mean, it's kind of a 50-50, right? Some people are like, oh, of course I would do it, no brainer. I'm one of those people, absolutely, just go, take them out. Other people, Debbie says she wanted to be able to hear your words. Yes.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind.
And but then there's other people that are like, no, that's killing people is never right, even if you know what their potential is. There's still a potential for rehabilitation.
It's the Minority Report problem.
Right, correct. Minority Report, pre-crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what the language is being put out there right now. It's he's Hitler, it's fascism, it's the return of this. People jail people. I mean, he said he's going to be a dictator. He wants to shred the Constitution. And he said he admires Hitler's generals. Like all this stuff. And so it's like, I mean, what would you not do to stop Hitler? I mean, there's not much on the list. I mean, no, you can't appease him, can't deal with him. He's just evil. Yep. You got to go. And so, there's that going on the left, and on the right, you've got, I mean, every single person. I'll respect the results if it's a free and fair election. Which basically is code for if I win. And so it's very.
I don't think that's true. I think.
Well, I mean, if it's free and fair, I would win. But Trump said that. He said that on Rogan. He's like, oh yeah, I mean, like as long as there's no shenanigans, like we're gonna win.
Yeah.
So he knows, like, if he doesn't win,
Well,
I mean, and in his mind, of course I would win. Like, I'm so much better than she is, like, I mean,
yeah. I think that one is what do they call that? Where it's you affirm the consequent or something. I don't remember. But I think what the way to understand that one is that um, what he sees as two potential scenarios. One is we win, everything's fine, and the other one is we get over the number, but due to some new trickery, I'm not allowed to take office, or I'm not allowed to declare victory or whatever. And I mean, just as an example, Hillary
well,
Clinton
that's not what he
never
did last time, though. I mean, he
Hillary
didn't.
Hillary
He
Clinton
did.
never conceded the election.
She did. That night, she did. She made a concession speech.
No, she did not. Podesta came out and said, "I know everybody's very upset right now. We're going to figure out what happened. We're going to get back to you." But she did not come out that evening.
Or the next day or whatever.
She said repeatedly that this was not a free and fair election because of Russian interference. In fact, she was giving interviews to that effect just this last month. That 2016 was stolen and so on, due to the Russians, of course. I mean, that's always the bad guys for her. And so it's like, okay, I mean, Stacey Abrams.
Here it is, November 5th. Sorry, November 9th. Hillary conceded defeat.
Okay, so 4 days
Wednesday
later.
morning. Yeah.
Yeah. But she still says that it was an unfair election.
Called on her supporters to give Donald Trump an open mind and the chance to lead. So,
yeah. So I think probably I think they're using it as a post-election strategy. So let's say your internal numbers say that you're losing. All right, so why not use the most rhetorical firepower you have? They're the Nazis, right? Number one. Right. But then also number two, since you're probably losing, your internal numbers say you're losing, why not sow the land with salt as you leave? So it's not, we saw what happened with let's give him a chance to bring the country together. It's like, no, he's Satan, and you have to resist. You remember we had a resistance last time. Join the resistance now, and resist utterly, right? No matter what you have to do, lie, cheat, anything that it takes to resist the evil that is present, right? And so then you have kind of a failed presidency. Nothing really happens. There's a bunch of weird internal investigations. People leave and they say nasty things about him afterwards, right? Blah blah blah. And then it's like, see, you can't elect Republicans. Look what garbage they do. Put the adults back in charge, and then we get, the adults, whatever it is the adults want to do. So yeah, I don't see it as like a rallying cry for violence. Although clearly some people have taken it that way. The second Trump assassin attempt, the guy, the one that was from Ukraine and everything, if you look through, or had recruited for it, if you look through a lot of his social media stuff, it's all like basically just clips from MSNBC. It's like, oh my gosh, Trump is going to try to destroy NATO. He's in cahoots with Russia, all this other stuff.
Right.
So like he saw the links and was like, we got to stop this guy.
Yeah.
By any means necessary. So, but I don't think that's the intent. It could be. I mean, I saw one meme that was like plan A, plan B, whatever. Plan A was like the debate that didn't work with Biden. So plan B is the assassination. And then plan C is Harris. And since that's not working, plan D is stuffing the ballot box. And then plan E would be some kind of like military intervention that prevents change in government. So
it's like Trump said back in
whoa.
It's like Trump said back in 2016. We have Second Amendment remedies or something like that. It was like, geez, yeah. And it is funny. There's a video. It's not funny, but there's a video on YouTube. I have to give you the link to it. This guy, he's a really young historian, and I mean just a kind of a savant for historical stuff. Just
Hmm.
the knowledge that he has is just ridiculous. I'm kind of looking for it right now. But he talks about um, like if a civil war was going to happen. Well, first of all, like what criteria needs to exist for a civil war, right? And he's
Hmm.
like, dude, all of the criteria. And he just goes down a list. And as you listen to him, you're just like, okay, yeah, well, yeah.
Sounds like
That one,
America.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he goes through and says, okay, well, so here would be the likely outcome of a civil war if it was to happen, right, in America. And it's really interesting. It heavily, or at least his analysis, he heavily favors the right because he's like, look, dude, like at the end of the day, like most of the military is going to be on the right. All law enforcement, most of them going to be on the right in terms of percentages, right?
Hmm.
People that have guns on the right, right? People that have that are preppers, right? That have like that have stocked up on stuff on the right, right? And he just goes to the business owner, mostly on goes through the small business owner,
Yeah.
and he just goes through this whole thing. He's just like, now let's look at geographically, like how would this potentially split up, et cetera? How would it come to a conclusion? It's a fascinating. I mean, and this is all driven from his lessons that
Yeah.
he's picked up from history. So
I just, I don't really see anything like that happening. Um, I just don't see it. And I think mainly because we don't have as strong of a geographic divide. And the divide that we have, like, so the divide for the Civil War, American Civil War, had to do with the
slavery,
slavery issue.
right?
And the slavery issue, they had been working on balancing for decades. I mean, there were people in Congress that basically kept the Union going by making sure that when they added this slave state, they added a free state at the same time, and they would
Right,
pause
right,
this state's entrance so that everything stayed balanced. And as soon
all
as
the
those
time.
people
Yeah.
retired, it went downhill. And it's like I just don't see an issue like that we have where it's like, okay, this is currently dividing the country in the sense that people are ready to leave,
Mm.
and it's like state by state where you actually could draw, because I mean shooting civil war almost always has to do with geographical boundaries of some kind. So like how like
Yeah.
we just don't have anything like that. So maybe like a cold civil war. I mean, I've heard arguments that we're currently in one. Um,
A cold civil war.
cold civil
We don't
war.
have any spies, though. Do we have spies?
Well,
We have to have
so
espionage. Don't we?
so like for example, during the COVID era, there were certain things that you were not allowed to say on social media,
Mm.
and there were some social media sites that would allow you to say them, and the kinds of attacks on them were kind of amazing. Like they would have all of their accounts at their cloud hosting canceled, and no one else would let them do it. So then they would purchase,
Yeah, you and I talked about this. Yeah.
yeah, they would purchase their own servers, but they couldn't get financing because suddenly they couldn't get bank accounts anywhere.
You're
And
talking about the whole like deplatforming phenomenon, right? Like,
not only deplatforming but debanked down to the personal level. Like we talk about like, oh, we're going to put sanctions on this Russian mobster or whatever like that. Like imagine you having sanctions put on you personally because of not that you've done anything illegal, but that you have
your views are unacceptable.
your views are unacceptable
Yeah.
to everyone that is in charge. And so it's like this is currently going on, right? This is not a sort of theoretical what if someone did this, like it's happening now. So you have the prosecution of Assange, you have a bunch of little stuff like that. So you could think of those in a Cold War sense as like the Cold War version of Fort Sumter being fired upon, or Harper's Ferry when John Brown gets arrested and executed and stuff. And it's like, this is before the Civil War kicks off for real, but like we look back and say, yeah, this was the first part, or this was the harbinger of it. So, it's I think it's an interesting idea. I don't think it's going to happen through violence. I think it'll happen through, nullification, that kind of thing. That's probably what'll happen. But
I think in a lot of ways the nullification thing has already kind of started big time. I mean, some certain views are acceptable, certain views are unacceptable. Depending on what crowd you run in. I mean, some of it's self-selection too. I mean, like I was talking to I was telling you a couple weeks ago how I had some friends come in from DC, and they were just like, yeah, I don't know anybody that's voting for Trump. I mean, that's just crazy. I couldn't even imagine. Like, I don't even know anybody.
It's like there are millions
and,
of them.
And even to the point of like, why would anybody, like, I mean, do they just not know? I guess they're all racist. It's like it's crazy that. But then this morning I was talking to a dear friend of mine up in Virginia, and he's hardcore Trump, and he's just like, dude, out of everybody I know, I don't know anybody except for you that would even entertain voting for that side or whatever. And I'm like,
there are millions.
I'm like, millions. You don't know anybody. Like, I mean, it's just nuts. But that kind of like self-selecting of like, dude, like and somebody was saying something the other day. I think they did some kind of poll, and it was like, would you rather your daughter date? Have you heard this?
A member of the opposite political party or something,
or versus like.
A different religion,
different religion. I mean, whatever it was something that would be like, oh, dude, I can't allow that. But no, the political party wins. It's like, no, I can't have a vote for. I was watching Love Is Blind, the last season. Love Is Blind dropped, and one of the questions that one of the girls had asked one of the guys is like, who did you vote for in the last election? And why, right? And which it is a good question, but if made in the spirit of curiosity, it's a great question, like that's what we're talking about here, but the way she was asking it was very much like, just gonna be a litmus test. Like, you answer this one wrong and you're out,
So I think it's actually a really smart question. And I kind of want to defend her because I remember seeing that too. And my first thought was like, what difference should it make? Like, come on, we're all Americans,
Right.
But then I thought, there's so many cultural things that go along with this. Right, so it's like, hey, if you say voted for Trump, you probably aren't really interested in whatever Lin-Manuel Miranda is going to do next on the Broadway stage. When like if you turn on the New York Fashion Week and you see a celebrity that's like, I'm wearing this in order to stop the patriarchy, whatever, you're kind of probably like roll your eyes because you're like, if you want to stop the patriarchy, would you have your whole butt hanging out of it like you are right now? Because that doesn't seem to make any sense, And then the person next to you who's not a Trump supporter would be like, how dare you, you're right. Or, when you say, what would be really fun to do with my guy friends is go out duck hunting. Right. So it's almost like you're part of an entirely different world. And so you could say, hey, did you vote for this guy? Did you vote for that person? We're probably not compatible. We'll probably just find each other insufferable. You don't think so?
I don't know. I mean, in some cases, sure. I mean, but it's. I mean, maybe it's the case that there's just very few crossover people. But I mean, it's the one thing I can say about the people that because my buddy was asking me this morning. Well, I mean, give me any reason why somebody would want to vote for Kamala Harris. I'm like, well, that's really simple.
I can give you a bunch.
Like, I mean,
sure.
if you're upset about Roe versus Wade being overturned, and you
this
feel
is the candidate for you.
This is, I mean,
vote for her.
It depends on how upset you are, like, and that's what. But I mean, if that is your issue,
if you think that's one of the most important thing facing the country,
and I know plenty of Christians, for example. Like, I mean, we grew up very conservative Christian. I mean, most of the people that we grew up with, they all voted Republican all the time. But that was their main issue. In fact, our mom is one of them. It's like, dude, if you're not pro-life, I can't vote for you. It doesn't matter whether everything that you're doing I love, but except for that one thing, like I can't vote for you.
Oh, so she's voted for plenty of Democrats in her time, all of which were pro-life.
Right. And so that there are people where that's a single issue voter, and that's
there you go.
Thing. Okay, so if that's you, then you probably are going to vote for. I mean, you certainly for Trump.
If you're in favor of, so if you're a fan of modern monetary policy, and you're like, deficits don't matter, what matters is the stimulating effect of more money being into the economy.
Well, as long as it results in actual growth, then that works. But if it doesn't, then
if it doesn't, no. The idea behind the modern monetary theory is that, I mean, you want it to result in growth, but it doesn't have to. Like, you can use it to to like shape your society's incentives in order to get a society that you
Sure.
want, because you can always borrow your way out of it or inflate the currency, and wages will always keep up because it's tied to labor and so on. Anyway, but if you're a fan of that and you're looking at it like, man, I think they should have borrowed more. Like, why stop here? Like this is fine. Or if you're, say, in favor of very aggressive NATO expansion,
Right.
that would be a wonderful reason to vote for Harris. Like, you should.
Yep.
I think with Trump, you're looking at not necessarily NATO contraction, but certainly not, trying to push it up against Russia's border. Like, that's.
Yeah.
But for Harris, you would, and if you think that's a good strategic thing, if you're
Well, also, if you go
go
ahead.
ahead, yeah, no, please.
No, go ahead.
Well, if you're a fan of, and this is something that I've talked about a little bit on here, if you're a fan of trying to use antitrust laws that are currently in place and actually go after monopolistic tech companies, that's something that the Biden administration has a very strong track record on, and I don't see any reason why Harris would not continue that. That would continue.
Well, actually, I'm a fan of that. So
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
Exactly. So the Biden administration, which Harris would continue, has done a lot as far as putting money into high tech manufacturing, bringing that back into the United States. We've sort of lost a lot of that to both Japan and Taiwan, especially Taiwan, which looks a little bit precarious right now. And so having the ability to make some of that stuff on our soil and being able to put money into that, that has a lot of payoffs, both strategically and also for jobs. That's Biden, right? So it's like, and again, if you look at Harris as an extension, which she said, right? What would
Which
you
she
do
claims she
differently?
is. Yep.
What would
I
you do
can't think of a
differently?
thing.
Nothing.
I can't think of anything. Yep.
So if you're like, okay, I like all those things, I would like for them to continue. Some of the other stuff, I mean, you can't have a perfect candidate, but like 70% of this is good. You should vote for her. Like, and the fact, like some of the personal stuff, you're like, she can't really talk without a teleprompter and stuff. It's like, don't worry, her team won't let her. She'll have
Right.
a teleprompter
And
in front of her. It's fine.
it's also not indicative.
It's okay.
It's also, I mean, one of the things about that particular critique, I mean, it is an accurate critique. She can't speak without one. I mean, she some of the moments are just hysterical where the teleprompter goes out and she literally just keeps repeating the last word that she said because
it'll come back. Say something, magic screen.
On the other hand, I mean, the largest group I've ever personally spoken in front of is 15,000 people, which was huge. And I mean, like she's speaking to crowds way bigger than that.
Yeah.
And I consider myself a pretty articulate person. It's terrifying. So like, I mean, I do want to cut her a little bit of slack in the sense that, hey, I mean, that's a very, and dude, we've had lots of presidents in the past who were abysmal public speakers. Calvin Coolidge. I mean, we could go down a whole list of people.
That was his brand. That was his brand. He didn't say anything.
Right, Silent Cal. It's like, what does he think? I don't know. Write him a letter. You'll find out. So I'm kind of like, okay, well, if that's the worst thing that she has going for her, it's not. But if that was the worst thing she had going for her, that's not
fine.
that.
Yeah,
that's not
like
that.
I care way more about the decisions that someone makes in that office than how good they are at making a speech.
Because it's a similar thing, a critique to Trump. It's like, okay, well, I don't like his statements. I don't like his attitude. I don't like he's a jerk. The way he like talks down to people. He's a bully, verbal bully. All those things are absolutely. I mean, I'll see how you can argue with that. I mean, I would not tolerate my kids saying this stuff. So like,
it's like if someone said no, he's not like that. It's like, I have a cool video to show you.
Like, dude, I mean, like,
here you go.
Hard to prove this one. But
what more do you want?
On the flip side, I mean, the counter argument's all like, hey, look, we're not hiring a pastor in chief. We're not hiring, we need somebody to like clean up the country. And this guy's a foul mouthed guy who's going to do it. So, okay, well, and I get that. And 100%. So like, if we're going to excuse that, you got to kind of like extend some grace on the other side as well. I mean, if you're going to be intellectually consistent anyway.
And I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, but it is difficult because people. In fact, I was just watching Michelle and Debbie were kind of going at it in the comments there, and one of them said, I think Michelle, and Michelle said, no, it's just I just see it as good versus evil at this point. And if you do see it that way, and by the way, like I respect your view, a lot of people do on both sides, which I think is what's really difficult about it in terms of bringing the country together afterwards or at any point in the future. It's like, dude, these people that you think are evil, what do you suggest we do about them? You know, it's like it's one of the things I really liked about Rogan. I don't know if you watched Rogan's interview with Trump yet.
No.
If you watch these longer conversations, these podcasts, when you get these political candidates on them, they're so good because they give you a chance to see the person as a human being. Like I'll just pick on the two girls since they're talking right now. But like if Michelle and Debbie, who they agree with each other, but if they were in the same room with, say, a couple of people that I know that would see a good and evil the opposite way, and we were all just sharing a beer and some chicken wings and talking about whatever, or we could go to a vegan restaurant, I guess, with a couple of these people. But whatever, you see what I'm saying? Like if we all got
tofu
together,
with the extra hot sauce.
Right. We need the hot sauce. Didn't Tim Walz say that? I carry hot sauce in my pocket all the time. Or Kamala Harris. One of them was like, I think it was Kamala. She's trying to prove that she's black. She's like, I carry hot sauce in my purse. I'm like, so does my friend Leanne. She carries hot sauce with her everywhere. Pete's, baby. Pete upgrades everything. But if you put people around a table together and they start talking, you typically don't. I mean, unless you're just trying to set fire to the place, you don't like go immediately to the two things that we know we're going to disagree on. Mm-hmm. Instead you try to find common ground with people. That's what people generally do. I mean, I've had conversations with, I'm a Christian. I've sat down with Muslims, Buddhists, atheists, whatever. And the first thing that I'm doing in conversation is, A, I'm not trying to proselytize, but B, even if I was trying to proselytize, the very first thing I would do is find out, where do we have common ground? Where are there areas of agreement? And frankly, I mean, they've done poll after poll after poll after poll. There is a whole list of things where literally 70% of the country is in 100% agreement. Well, not 70%, 60% of the time it works every time. But 70% approval on so many issues. And it's like, well, why wouldn't we tackle these 70% of things that like everybody agrees on?
Yeah.
And it's bewildering to me. I mean, it's not bewildering. I mean, it makes sense in the campaigning, but then it's like, okay, well, after the campaign is over, now we have to govern. And how do you?
Yes, but that's the thing is, if you're the party, the campaign is never over.
It never ends. Yeah.
It's only over for the candidate once they win. So what I thought, what would have been like amazing thing if Joe Biden, when he was elected in 2020, if he had taken those things, right? Just we made a list of them, and he sponsored or talked them up, suggested them as individual bills, right? One after the next. And it's like, we're going to propose these through Congress. Everybody loves them. We're going to do one at a time. And it's like every day.
Straight up or down vote. Yep.
Right. Like every week, which one are we doing this week? We're going to do this one. We're doing this one. This is one that we know everybody likes. We talked to this person. And then it's like, make Congress act on these things that are wildly popular and simple, right? And not, 5,000 pages of who knows what, right? But like simple things that we know everyone likes. Do it for a year. At the end of the year, you resign. Right? It's like you would step down as beloved Uncle Joe.
Right.
Like everybody would love you forever. It's like, and now we pass it off to the next generation of leaders. I will always be around for inspirational support or whatever. You sort of become like the chancellor. You show up to stuff because like this elder statesman, we all love him, all this other stuff. It would have been amazing. Would have been amazing. But that's the thing is like, that's the kind of thing that you can do, you would sort of dream of as a statesman, but a party can't afford to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they won't.
And since right now what we have is really less rule by person and more rule by party. And I think especially, I mean, Trump might be a little bit of a exception to this.
Well, he is a party. He is the party.
He is the party, yeah. I am the Republican Party. Anyway, I think that actually that's what makes this the most interesting part about this election to me. Yeah. So like we can go through the stuff about how many justices.
Well, actually, let's shift and talk about that because I think this is the most interesting thing you and I have talked about recently.
Yeah. So what I think is on the ballot really is a difference between, say, the people's choice and a managed democracy. Mm-hmm. So an example of a managed democracy, and I hate to bring this one up because everyone's going to suddenly just lose their minds, but
Tune out. Yeah.
Iran. So Iran is a democracy. Yeah, right. They have elections, and they have
It's
a
not a
president.
democracy. It's a republic.
It's a republic. It's an Islamic republic, but they democratically elect their president, and with very few irregularities. Every once in a while, there'll be one where it doesn't look like this was a legit election, but usually it's not a big deal because the people who are allowed to run are the ones that have been vetted by the supreme leader and the Supreme
Yeah,
Council.
the mullahs actually run it, right?
They pick it up.
It's
So-
all kabuki. Yeah.
Well, not fully. So usually got about four candidates. You'll have like a hard right, and then you'll have a strong reformer, and then you have a couple moderates. And they're kind of like, hey, any of the four are fine. The one that's a strong reformer, yeah, there might be some uncomfortable stuff that comes out of that, but not crazy. Like we didn't let the people pick who they wanted to run, right? Like
Right.
we picked someone that we can work with, but maybe the people aren't into that right now. Maybe they want like some super hardliner. Cool, we like that too, right? And so we'll work with any of these four. You pick, and it's a managed democratic process, managed by the smart people, the ones that are really in charge. So if you look at the Harris candidacy, that's quite literally
Clearly what it is. Yeah.
What it
Party
is, yeah.
elders have picked her. Yep.
picked her, and it's like, and if Trump loses, I think you'll see a work within the party to say, look, we did this twice now. We've done it three times.
On the Republican side?
On the Republican side. We've done it
we
three
need to
times.
we need to get some smart people to do the right thing. Yeah.
We lucked out the first time, but the other two, we can't let the people just have their choice. That doesn't work. We've seen it now. It's too expensive for us as a party to let that happen. So we'll do the same thing. Now, there might be sort of a sheen of democracy over it, just like there was with, I think sometimes the Biden win looked kind of engineered. The 2020 Democrat nomination.
100% it was. I mean, they sued to get Bernie out of the different primaries. This one is even more remarkable. I mean, they wouldn't have let RFK run. They wouldn't let. I mean, there was one Democrat that basically finally said, "Screw this, I'm running anyway." And the party like threw the kitchen sink at this guy, and he showed up in New Hampshire, I think, and he got like a handful of votes, and he was gone.
Yeah. Well, and I think you'll see maybe not to that extreme yet, but something kind of like that on the Republican side if they lose. If the Democrats lose, then I think it's kind of like, hey, guys, we can't let you pick, right? Like we got to let the people pick.
Well, there could be an uprising from within, from the people saying, hey, this is unacceptable, Right. Yeah. And I think there's, ironically, it's just so funny, like, I mean, you think about like Joe Rogan, great example. Like, I mean, he was a Bernie Sanders guy.
Yeah, it's Bernie bro.
Just 4 years ago, and so, and it's like, they to see him now. I mean, he said it multiple times. He's like, dude, I'm center left, and which is pretty much where I would describe myself, even, and it's like, but the fact is that like so there's some core things that Trump has basically like appropriated from Bernie, or maybe they both kind of were synced up in those mindsets anyway. Certainly the audience is the same. It's the disaffected, working person.
And if you look at both 2016 and 2020, I think legitimately Sanders was like the people's choice. But through that managed process, he was sort of not allowed to take the nomination.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is one of those where like I don't want anyone to think like, oh my gosh, Iran, you're comparing us to Iran. I think there are some benefits to managed democracies. Like, I'm not saying that as though that's like automatically bad or, the worst thing that could happen. It does promote stability. You do wind up with some sort of cronyism that goes on because you wind up
you think
increasing the power of machine politics. Yeah. But there are ways to mitigate that somewhat. So I don't think it's like a disaster. It definitely takes the hands of the federal government. It takes that a little bit further out of the hands of the people than it already is. But then you'd say, well, but you don't need that for the executive. You've got a powerful Congress which can do whatever it wants, and they don't have to So what if that's more managed? And if you look at like the way the president was originally chosen, I'm thinking like 1795 kind of stuff.
Yeah, in the Constitution, the way it's originally written, the people don't really have a say in it. You know?
There's a lot of layers in between the individual citizen and who gets picked as the president.
Correct.
So this would be in a way kind of reverting to that ethos, even if you're using a somewhat different method to do it. So, like I said, I don't consider it a disaster. I just think it's more of like that is the real fascinating choice that's happening here underneath the surface of abortion, protecting democracy, NATO, inflation, all that other stuff.
The thing too that has really struck me this time is just the lack of imagination on the left. The things that they're imaginative, and I'll define what I'm talking about. So, like, okay. I mean, in the past, you've had, like, for example, like, hey, we need to reform the healthcare system. Okay, that is a big deal, right?
Yep.
That was brought forward multiple times on the left. It was never really brought forward on the right in any serious way. I've heard good, in fact, but ironically, they ended up with using the Heritage Foundation, a right crafted model. But all the initiative, all of the energy, all of the drive came from the left,
Mm-hmm.
The conversation about getting us out of these stupid wars, like Trump is saying, dude, I've been saying that since 2002. When we invaded Iraq, like this is dumb. This is not who attacked us. This is completely manufactured. This is outrageous. Well, all of that energy was coming from the left. Like, I mean, mm-hmm. if you said, people forget, but dude, 20 years ago, if you said, why are we fighting these wars? I mean, you would be like the most unpatriotic, it was like, dude, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists, I mean, like, if you remember these slogans, I mean, it was crazy. Patriot Act, all put forward through by Republicans, and it was the liberals like myself that were like, this is outrageous. You're spying on American citizens. You're snooping in my phone. Now, mm-hmm. all of those talking points are on the right.
Yep.
So all of the people that object to surveillance state, military action, all this other stuff that I've been saying for 20 years, they're all on the right now. And now the liberals, which they're not even liberal. You can't even say liberal anymore. I'm sorry. I'm taking the word liberal back from the left. It is not yours. These are lefties, for whatever you want to call it. I mean, they're talking about, perpetuating. Let's just continue to. It is crazy. We don't have to delineate all this stuff. It's nuts. It is absolutely bananas.
We've had a reshuffling of the deck.
100%. So it's like, okay. Mm-hmm. Now, where I object is. And why, people have asked me a lot, like, oh, dude, you're going to vote for Trump? Like, are you going to actually do that? And, so I made my decision last week. I did not vote for Trump, right? And I did not vote for Kamala either. I went libertarian. I was like, we're gonna vote for these guys because I think we need more parties. Texas is gonna go Trump anyway. I'm just like, let me help this guy get to the 5% and hit this threshold so we can get out here. But but all of the energy, right? And part of the reason I did that was because I just cannot get behind Trump as an individual. Like, he's in my mind, he disqualified himself with his actions in 2020 after the election. And and I'll get more into detail on that on a different podcast if you guys want to hear about it. But if I get enough comments, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll see.
but I'm not interested in relitigating it right now. To me, he's disqualified himself, and he's never even come to terms. Like, if he would have owned up to it and said, hey, it looks shady to me, but I get it now, blah, blah, blah. We won't be doing that again. He's just never owned it, Mm-hmm. And so, he still claims he won. It was stolen from him. I can't get behind it. On the flip side, I will give their side and their team a lot of credit because they all of the big ideas that are being put out right now are coming from, I don't even know if you can call it the right anymore. It's just very weird what's going on here, but they're coming from that camp. You've got
the MAGAs.
The MAGAs. They've got
Magadonia.
Whether you like the ideas or not. Okay, so if you're a liberal watching this and you're like, I can't believe you're saying, it's not about whether you agree with the ideas. I'm just pointing at the scale
Mm.
of what they're talking about, right? On the left, you have we're going to hand out a $25,000 credit for new home buyers. We're going to give 5,000 XYZ, right? We're
We're
going
gonna have some
to
price controls.
here's what we're doing for black men. Here's what we're doing for Puerto Ricans. Now that, since we got to have a Puerto Rican platform now, it's just every time some new group they feel like is marginalized. Oh, and here's what we're going to do for Chinese women in Los Angeles. I mean, like whatever. You can complete segmentation and just very band-aid. Let me hand you a jelly bean type of political garbage. It's Tammany Hall crap. Okay. And then meanwhile, over here, you've got actually interesting ideas. You've got like Vivek is talking about, he's like, look, all these bureaucracies that have mushroomed, right? I mean, you've got the federal government is obviously the largest player in the country. All these different things going on. All these different departments, and God knows even what they do. They're created to address something, and then there's zero incentive to actually solve it, because if I solve it, then my department goes away. So it's just like we just continue to perpetuate. Let's do another study. Let's do this. Let's do that. We need to hire a new department with this, and it's literally Hail Hydra. And you got Vivek comes in and goes. He goes, I'll tell you exactly how you'd reduce the size of government. You say, okay, everybody that has a social security number that ends with an even number, you're fired. And then we take everybody that's left and we say, okay, out of you people, everyone who has a social security that begins with an even number, you're fired. And so now you have, it's completely like,
it doesn't even matter which 75% you get rid of. Just get rid of 75% of them.
Get rid of 75% of all of the manpower. And then let's see what the needs actually are, because you're going to put incredible stress on the system for a minute, because all these things are going to come right, whatever. And then you're going to have a scrambling, just like when the government shuts down. And he made this point. He's like, look, how many times Congress shuts down the government because somebody doesn't agree with whatever. So we're going to shut the government down. And somehow only essential workers, right, go to work.
And nobody notices.
Nobody notices. All the social security checks keep coming. Everything keeps going. He said, okay, well, then what in the world are we actually doing here? Like, I mean, it affects you if you're going to go visit a park or whatever. Obviously long term, that doesn't work. But in the short term, it would absolutely redefine, like, okay, well, here's what's actually mission critical, and here's what maybe we can address in a week or two, right? And you develop a on the field, in reality level of hierarchy in terms of what actually needs to get done versus what doesn't need to get done. And then you can see, well, shoot, man, we don't even need this department. We don't even need that department. This, you know what I mean? And you also have a bunch of smart people. I mean, because it's not like the government only hires dumb people. I mean, most of the people the government hires are intelligent, smart, highly educated, et cetera. I mean, but they're not properly motivated because there's no incentive to actually like.
There's no performance pay.
There's no performance metrics. There's no whatever. I mean, we can go down a whole list of stuff. And obviously, I'm not speaking about every individual, but just in general, if you evaluate an organization from the outside, it's missing a lot of the incentive structure that causes great organizations to thrive and grow and execute properly. It's just missing those. And so how do we then reinstill those to actually execute against things that we actually want to have happen? That's one thing. I mean, I'm not saying he should do it. I'm saying that's a big idea. That's a big idea. Second big idea, RFK talking about, and you and I were talking about him this morning. Dude, he's talking about looking into and dismantling this big pharma, big food, incestuous circle that's basically poisoning people. In terms of, I mean, we got an obesity epidemic. We got all these different epidemics of, all this stuff that's going on. All big pharma and big food in cahoots together to make people unhealthy. Which of course drives up the healthcare costs, drives up all this stuff. I mean, you can see when he lays it out. Yeah, okay, there's all the linkages. No wonder they tried to shut him up.
Yeah.
No wonder they tried to shut. I mean, anytime somebody's like, "Oh, well, they tried to censor him," or he says some crazy stuff. I'm like, have you listened to what he says? Because if you go listen to what he says, sworn testimony in front of Congress, just go watch that.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can argue. I'm not saying point by point, maybe there's something that you find objectionable, but just overall, dude, I mean, once you step back and see the picture that he's laying out there, it's like reading Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like, wow, that's crazy.
Seems kind of like it's everywhere.
Anyway.
I mean, those are, one of the ones I saw out of his camp that he was talking about back when he was running for himself to be president. It was something like he wanted to ban any advertisements for prescription medication.
Hmm.
So I don't
They
think
should.
I don't think anybody realizes how disruptive that would be, because that is currently one of the biggest sources of income for news channels. So suddenly, news wouldn't be able to just have as their patron the pharma industry.
Hmm.
It's like that would change a
Dude,
lot of stuff.
pharma and ag, and then CPG, like those three consumer packaged goods. These these three, and then of course you put in the health industry in there. It's not, and it's not like there's some like back room where they're lighting cigars and cutting these deals. It's just an alignment of interest that is not in the public's interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not. It's not. I mean, just I had a Chinese doctor tell me this one time. I used to work with this company called ZocDoc, and we would we connect patients with doctors basically. And I opened up Austin for him. When we opened up acupuncturists, I ended up meeting a lot of Chinese and Asian doctors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk to them, and they would tell you, it's like, look, dude, think about it, man. You go to a doctor, right? And they're not really trying to fix you, right? How do they make money? They make money when they see you. They make money when they get you on Medicaid. How do these drug companies make money? When you take their medication. So how do they keep you taking it? It's just like razor blades, dude. Like, that's a great business to be in. Hair always grows back. I'm always going to need to shave. Got to buy some more razor blades. You get people in a pattern of consumption, and then there's a new revenue stream, right? So, dude, yes, when it's just me as a doctor and you as a patient, yes, I'm trying to help you get well, right? But when you zoom out and you see the pressures that are put on these people and the insurance reimbursements and all the different things that are going on, not to mention the fact that you got all these ads, people ask your doctor about this, all these patients coming in. Oh, I heard this might make my situation better. Oh, I heard I have these tingly toes, and what can I take for it? And dude, of course, and a lot of the doctors that I know that I met through there, like, they're good people. They're trying to do the right thing, and they've got certain realities to how they got to run their business. They can spend 10 minutes with each patient, sometimes less, 5. We got to, if I don't hit 60 patients a day, one doctor told me I got to see 60 patients a day just to make sure. I mean, think about that, man. I mean,
60 a day.
Sorry, not 60 a day. It was 60 a week, something like that. It was like no, it was, dude. It was like, what was the number he told me? 60 stands out in my mind, but it was like some measurement. They have to see a certain number. Hey guys.
So like you're seeing a patient every 5 to 10 minutes.
Every 5 to 10 minutes. That's right. That's exactly right. And you have, and he wasn't talking about himself, but he's talking about like him, his physician's assistant, his what do you call it?
Yeah. So his practice.
Yeah, exactly. They had to see 60 patients a day. They couldn't keep the doors open. And this was a private practice doctor with let's say two PAs and a what do you call it, licensed nurse practitioner or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had to do that. That was
not
the
even
baseline.
someone. It's not even someone like taking Medicaid or wrangling with insurance over payments and stuff. Like, this is a nice little private practice with.
Right.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. I'm prescribed medication, right? I take Adderall for my ADD, but I have to re-qualify with him every 90 days. And he can get me on a screen share, but a face-to-face, and I pay a copay for that. And it's part of, of course there's medical reasons to make sure there's no abuse going on. I understand the controls, but it's all there to make money, so, and it has to, because we're a for-profit medical society. How else are you going to do it, So somebody's got to pay them.
Did Harris, am I correct that Harris has removed single payer healthcare as part of her platform?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. And again, not that that's a great idea. It's just the fact that there are no real groundbreaking ideas that are going on over there.
No, the idea is to turn the page.
Turn the page, man. Turn the page. it's funny. You saw that Brett Baer interview, right?
Yeah, I
Where
did.
she's like, you know what I'm talking, about,
He's
right? And
like,
he's like, I
actually,
have no idea.
I don't know.
So I, so, so I talked to one of my friends who's a little bit more connected on the left, and he was like, well, he goes, what she was saying is that from their perspective, the reason we have this broken discourse in the country and all this vitriol is squarely on Trump. Like when Trump came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and all this other kind of stuff, right? He set off this firestorm of, first people were shocked and appalled, and people were clutching their pearls. I can't believe, but now it's become more mainstream. Like you can't get on any attention unless you're being, insane with your rhetoric. And so that's what they're blaming it on. And so when she said, "Oh well," he said, "You've been running for president. Oh, you've been in office for 3.5 years." And she's like, "Right, but Trump has been running for president." And he's like, "What does that have to do?" And
Yeah, you're in the office.
Everybody made fun of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And from when you're squarely in reality, it is making fun of that because, I mean, what are you talking about, dude? So some guy is trying to run for office. However, there is a case to be made because he's not a typical politician in that he's just a candidate. I mean, think about like Mitt Romney, right? Mitt Romney lost the presidency when he ran, and he's gone. I mean, Republicans basically are just like, yeah, I'm done with you, dude. You're a loser,
He became senator of Utah.
But not anybody that's taken seriously. Like, I mean, there are some people that take him seriously, but the vast majority of people, if I did a poll of people call him Rhino, and he's the minute you step off the reservation, you're done, but with Trump, like he could lose. He did lose. He's lost multiple times. If you stacked up, okay, yes, he won the vote in 2016, but he lost the popular vote. But he managed to eke out an electoral win. But since then, I mean, they lost in the midterm. They lost, the 2020 election. They lost the 2022 elections in terms of that, right? And that's where there's a lot of, when I sent you that article earlier today and asked for your comments on it, that's the view on the left is that, okay, these Republicans, for whatever reason, they're so in love with Trump that they just kind of deluded themselves. This is the best guy for the job, even though all the outrageous stuff he says, he can never get above 47% approval. And again, I'm not sharing it. I'm just like, this is their way of thinking.
Yeah.
So you can't get above 47%, yet they continue to nominate this guy, even though he lost his own election, lost the second election, refused to leave office, lost the two midterms in between. And they're just going to nominate him again, and he's going to lose again in spectacular fashion because, ever since Dobbs, which is the Roe versus Wade repeal, the dynamic has shifted. Women are going to vote for anybody who stands up for, reinstating Roe versus Wade. And, as all these stories come out and then they listen to his crazy rhetoric, like this, obviously it's an unacceptable choice. Mm-hmm. And, there are a lot of reasonable people who see that, and they've all come over and supported Kamala. Witness all the people who used to work in his administration. Witness Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney, blah, blah, like we go down a whole list of all these people that have like defected because he's just too outrageous, right? That's the way they see it. And so that's what she was talking about in that interview. And come on, Brent, you know what I'm talking about, if you're in that zeitgeist, you do know what she's talking about. But if you're not in the zeitgeist, it's like, well, okay, but now I'm asking you I have policy questions, and you can't just like lay the whole blame on it. Literally, that's their strategy is, well, duh. And it's Trump. Like, it's not duh. Yeah.
Trump. Yeah. That to me, so I don't know, like I would find that like really strange, right? Like if let's say I had a student that was constantly interrupting me, and it was really messing up the class and stuff, and I was doing nothing about it, or I was indulging it or whatever. And someone said, well, hey, you should do something about this. You're the professor. I'm like, well, they're trying to be the professor. It's like,
but take responsibility for your class.
But they're not. Right. You're the professor, right? It's like, so I don't see how that is. It is that, oh my gosh, it's like his rhetoric is just distorting reality around him. It's it's like, I don't see how that is a thing. I mean, honestly, when people say, oh, he's not a normal candidate, like we've never had someone like this before, a lot of what he's doing and his sort of rise back reminds me a lot of, obviously this parallel isn't perfect, but Teddy Roosevelt.
Hmm.
who was president. Um, he after he was voted out, did some other stuff, and then he comes back. He's not able to get nomination within his party. He creates the Bull Moose
Little
Party
Moose
as a
Party. Yep.
alternative. Like a real Republican, not like these phonies or whatever. Now it
Right.
doesn't work for him. Right? It doesn't work, but it's not like the dude shapes Republican politics even as they're opposed to him
Correct.
far after he's out of office, and his ideas are still dominant within the party, even though he's been removed. So, I look at the stuff with Trump, and it's like, well, it's like Teddy Roosevelt. It's just we're seeing some different outcomes as far as is it possible to come back? And it's like, well, Teddy couldn't do it.
Well, see, yeah, I
Maybe
think
he can.
I think I agree. A, I agree with what you're saying, and B, I think this question of the hope has been that once Trump gets defeated, and this is the hope from the reasonable quote unquote Republicans, right, that used to be in charge, is that once he gets defeated and MAGA dies, it's slow death, and people kind of finally wake up from the trance that they're in, right? That the party can then go back to being run by the adults, and this fever will break, and blah blah blah, right?
Right.
And to me, it's so silly at this point, because regardless of, and this is, I was having a conversation with somebody else about this. Like, regardless of the outcome, let's say that let's forecast for this scenario, Trump loses.
Okay.
Let's say he loses narrowly, badly, whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Harris is 47.
Harris wins. He's the next president, right?
Okay.
The all of the ascendant voices in the Republican Party, because since the Democrats, their offering isn't designed to catch any of the zeitgeist around these ideas, all the ideas I just talked about, right? The cutting the size of government drastically, reforming the healthcare system, that health care,
right,
whatever you want to call it, love triangle, menage a trois,
industry capture,
right? Abandoning the stupid wars, being the world's policeman, right? All these different things that are being talked about on the right, the new right, whatever you want to call it, alt-right. I know we can't use that either. So all those ideas, none of them are being picked up. So there's a huge vacuum, and there's obviously a hunger for those ideas. And the people that have woken up, let's say, taken the red pill, whatever you want to call it, right? And they're like, they're not in the matrix anymore. And they're like, oh, they've been lying to me, all those people, they're not going to go anywhere, because there's nowhere for them to go to. And so what's going to happen is the next voice, the ascendant voice, is going to be a voice that knows how to capture that zeitgeist, can speak into it, and probably somebody who's a lot more competent at actually executing on getting into office and executing on these ideas. Because if you eliminate all of the quote unquote hateful rhetoric that's being put out on the right, and look, let's not call it hateful. Let's call it, even people like myself find it objectionable. So it's not like, reasonable people can find the rhetoric objectionable. But if you did away with that and still kept the ideas, that's a hard train to stop, in my view, because there's just too many people that want it.
Yeah.
So anyway, your thoughts.
It depends. Well, and it just depends on who's going to have the stomach to kind of endure what will happen when they do stand up for it. So, like, if let's say this scenario happens, we get Harris 47, so now we're looking at 2028, and let's say Vivek becomes the Republican nominee in 2028.
You got a ton of people to choose from.
Yeah. Young, dynamic, very intelligent, great public speaker, all sorts of good stuff. And it's like, you do know he will also be called Hitler.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And like, he'll probably have everything doxed about him. He'll probably find himself in the middle of many lawsuits. People will come out of the woodwork saying, back in the day, he did this or he did that to me, and I've never recovered. I didn't want to tell anybody, but now I have to, because the chance that he would be president, I can't stand it.
Deal with it. Yeah.
And it's like, who's ready to be called the next Hitler? Because whoever it is who has those ideas will be called that. And I think that's the case with Trump. I mean, if you look at, say, what's really fun is looking at the Trump interview with Oprah Winfrey back before he was running, and where she's just like, I love what you're saying. You should run for president. Like, it's just this beautiful
But,
love fest.
but see, it's not the. So I was listening to this guy. Oh, did you listen to that interview I sent you? What's his name? The comedian guy, the one that was a big lefty is now is not.
I don't think so. I must not have heard it.
Um,
I have to go
but
back and look.
well, so the whole idea is that I'm talking about is because if you think about the things that actually call, what you ask people to justify, okay, well, how can you call Trump a Nazi or why is he a fascist? What's he doing? It's all these things that he said that actually everybody on the right agrees that he's not going to do any of those things, right? Become dictator for a day, or shred the Constitution. I mean, he did say that, like, oh, if the Constitution says we can't do that, we should just get rid of the Constitution. The turning the military on America, he did say that. He asked if they could shoot protesters
In the
legs.
legs.
In the legs, yeah, in the legs. To be fair, in the legs. But I mean, like, I can go down a whole list of stuff that he said that you're like,
Yeah, don't worry though. I'm telling you, whatever it is, whoever the next person is, there'll be some really powerful
they'll
way.
find something.
Oh yeah,
maybe you're right.
Just ready. Just get ready. Anyway, hey, I gotta go.
Yeah, I know, dude.
So
I know.
I'm glad we were able to finally get back together after
Squeeze it
taking
in
a
here.
week. Next week is going to be a lot of fun.
Are we doing an election watch part? What are we doing?
Oh, we probably should. That's going to be like we're just going to be sitting around waiting for an hour in between each thing.
Yeah.
We should do. We got to
to
recap the next day.
just get a beer in my hand and just like, what's gonna happen now? All right, man. Hey, it's good to see you. Get out of there. Have fun. Live your life. We'll catch up next week.
All right. Take care.
All right. See ya.